Hello folks and welcome to our game. Myself, Shane Stapleton. No Michael Verney this week, thankfully, says ye. We've got Oisin Langan and Nicky Brennan. How are things, lads?
All good, Shane. How are you?
All good, Shane.
How are you, Nicky?
Big weekend, the GA coming
up.
Oisin,
how are you? Good to see you.
And you.
Nicky, I'm gonna go straight to what Owen Cody said just during the week. And I suppose you're a little bit burned about us, taking pops at Leinster all the time. And he said, as I said last year, I don't think we get enough credit for the consistency in this group of players. Obviously, we're not a monster team. We can't do anything about that, but we'll always be thereabouts. We've come up against a great Limerick team the last couple of years, but we'll always back ourselves, and we don't need anybody from the outside telling us what we're good at and what we're not good at. Like, do you look at that and think fair enough?
Look, we all know, going back to when I'm a bit older than YouTube videos, Munster hurling has always been up there in lights, and Leinster has always second class citizens as a drill. But look, that's just the way it is. I mean, the crowds are going to the Munster Championship. It's understandable there's a lot more hype about it. But I do think that maybe Leinster this year, I think the Leinster final let us all down a bit, all right. But I think Leinster Championship this year was actually quite a good championship. And it has been on and off. Look, Leinster is a situation where it is catering for that unfortunate bit of bottom of tier 1, top of tier 2, bit of yo-yoing going on there with teams. And be quite frank about it, unless there was some radical change, that's the reality of it. That's the reality of it. They're going to have, perhaps, but you will get the occasional game that just throws everything aside. You have Carlow drawing with Kilkenny. You have Antrim defeating Wexford. You have Wexford going all the way to Galway. That's not so much of a surprise, to be honest. So look, you'll get a certain amount of those games, but then you go back to Munster and you can have some games then that don't sure the lights at all either. So look, it's one of those topics. It's not going to go away, but I think it's always nice for Kilkenny players and Owen and them lads to feel that the world is against us here, lads. I can assure you that that's been said a bit of tongue in cheek and has been used maybe as a bit of motivation. But you've got it not to the psychology of games. Every team will use some sort of something or other to motivate itself against opposition and against the world and his mother that appears to be against it.
I know, Shane, when you were commentating and presenting with KCLR as well, are you getting that vibe within Kilkenny folk that they're like using this as fuel?
I think a lot of it is exactly as Nicky says. You'll use anything that you can find as fuel. The thing with Kilkenny is look at it this way, right? If Kilkenny went into Munster, they'd be in contention every year. And how I judge which is the stronger championship is, and again, this is all theory, but I'd stand over it as a theory. If you put Kilkenny into Munster, they'd be competitive every year. If you put Waterford into Leinster, we haven't got out of the Munster as a round robin, but we'd probably get out of Leinster every year. And I say we because I'm a Waterford man, obviously. If you took the bottom 3 teams in Leinster, you couldn't put them into Munster. They'd be drowned in it. Whereas Galway, some years they'd be okay, some years they wouldn't. And geographically, Galway would probably suit Munster at the moment. But that's something we can come back to. So I understand why Kilkenny kind of get irritated that they're nearly dragged down with everyone else in Leinster when they are quite clearly, but on average, better than everyone in the province and have been for as long as I've been watching hurling. And 76 Leinster titles and 5 in a row tells its own story. There was an awful lot of talk about Dublin because, Shane, you know it, being someone from the outside, but who is of Dublin hurling. And of course, I'm a little bit like that, granted in a different way. I played at the lowest level of Dublin. That's always where I've kind of swum at the bottom. But I get what it is to be a Dublin hurling person because for a long time I lived in Dublin, followed the team and was around hurling people in Dublin. And there's always been this thing of, wouldn't it be great if Dublin could kick on? Because you need more teams in Dublin, or you need more teams in hurling. It's something that rugby at a world level suffers from. The fact that there's only 9 teams can win it. Like, they call it a World Cup. It should be called certain parts of the World Cup. But hurling needs that extra team. And Dublin have always kind of been, so close to being that extra team. And they could be that extra team. If they had the likes of Kilkenny and Conor O'Callaghan, maybe they would be that extra team. So when they got to the final beating Galway, there was a bit of excitement about them. And of course, they flopped massively. Now, are Dublin that bad? No, they're not. Would Kilkenny beat them 9 times if they met them 10 times? Probably they would. But the thing for Dublin is they just didn't do themselves justice on the day, and that's a pity. And then, of course, what happens is when something like that happens, there's a retrospective tint put on the championship. So instead of saying, Dublin went to Galway and won, fair play to them, you then say, Dublin went to Galway and they beat 14 men, and Galway weren't that good. So people start kind of retrofitting their arguments. So going back to your original question, which I veered off from, I think Nicky summed it up, and Nicky knows, having been a player, having been a manager, having been a chairman, having been a president, and of course now with his excellent coverage on community radio, Kilkenny City, that players will look for anything. And I think there was a certain element of, we're messing, and we know what was going on, but everyone's writing us off. Everyone's writing us off. I've yet to meet anyone who has ever written Kilkenny off, because even when Kilkenny aren't great, they're still good enough to win in All-Ireland.
And Nicky, I was going to ask you something on top of that. Oh, yeah. Oisín mentioned Galway and maybe Munster. That actually was the case from 1959 to 69. I think they won one of 12 championship matches then. I know you would have been very young when that happened, but do you have any recollection of that being the case and Galway competing there?
Oh, yeah, I do, of course. Yeah, I'm afraid I'm that vintage, but I can tell you, as somebody who went out on a limb as Leinster chairman to bring Galway into Leinster, and the courtship took a little bit off courtship for a while, but I knew it was going to succeed. Now, I didn't actually succeed in bringing it over the line, but my good friend Seamus Howland actually succeeded in bringing it. I knew it was going to happen. I felt at the time all Galway teams should be in Leinster. They're all in there now. That's where they are. They're not going to change. Don't expect that to change at all. So that is off the agenda, to be quite frank about it.
And Oisín, just then to move on to what Tony Kelly has said this week, because he was talking about the disappointment of Clare's performance in the Munster final where they lost by 6 points to Limerick, and he goes, the last day we didn't play well enough in general. We got a bit of a purple patch. When I say we got a bit of a purple patch, 8, 9, 10 minutes of the second half, and we didn't even capitalise it or get closer to ask the question. Now, do you look at, like you'd hear a few people say, okay, the positive here compared with 2 years ago, when Clare got to extra time and all that, and everyone was like, they're a potential champion in waiting. Whereas now everyone's recalibrated expectations, talking about how brilliant Limerick are, and Clare can't come back. But maybe that's actually the perfect position to be in. Everyone's writing them off. They haven't played their best stuff.
Well, you two boys have been involved at the top level, so I imagine that you know better than anyone that if you lose a game or you don't perform, the first thing you probably want is to get back out there straight away, and Clare have that chance. And the talk about Clare before this game was they have to win it or it's damaging. Now, as you're aware, lads, I do a bit of PR, so let me put a bit of spin on this. If you throw everything at Limerick or any team, and they're your Everest, and you don't do it, you don't beat them, I think it drains the confidence, and you're thinking, well, what more can we do? Whereas Clare, no, they didn't actually play that well against Limerick, and there's an awful lot more left in them. So that's probably the angle I'd be taking if I was a Clare person or in that Clare squad this week of, okay, let's address what we didn't do well against Limerick, and let's get it right for the next day, because to quote the great Brian Corcoran, I didn't come back for a Munster, I came back for an All-Ireland. And much as Clare would love a Munster, because it's been a long time, they're still in the running for the All-Ireland. And like, I think the losses against Limerick the last couple of years really got to them. And I think you could see that in the 2 semi-finals against Kilkenny, one of which they could have won. But yeah, definitely. I think there's a positive spin for Clare to be taken heading on to the quarter-final. And the fact that it's a 2-week break is ideal as well. If it was a 1 week break, you'd have your worry. The fact that it's a 2 week break, I think, suits them very, very well.
And Nicky, what do you think?
Shane, I was actually down in Clare on Tuesday at the press launch for the championship, and I actually interviewed Tony Kelly. And I felt he was down, and he realised that they didn't really perform the way they wanted to perform. But it was interesting after the game that Brian Lohan, openly admitted that they played second fiddle and all of that. They were going to train that night, and I asked him how he would approach training. So just said they have to push what happened at the weekend against Limerick behind them out. They have to try and look at maybe what went wrong, but not dwell on it too much. But realising that there's a fair likelihood they're going to be playing Wexford in the quarter final. So I think there's disappointment down in Clare, and but realising that the year is not over yet. Tony says we have to put the Munster Championship out of our mind now. That's not going to come back on the radar till 5, and we now have a new competition to start off, and we have an opportunity to do well in that, and it's up to us as players and management to get our act together. And his attitude was good, albeit a bit downbeat that they lost against Limerick. So that was the feeling in Dodge took place down in the Michael Cusack Centre in Carden in Clare. So it was their territory, and the officers Clare County Board were there as well. And they equally disappointed, but equally determined that this season can still be a very good one for Clare.
And Nicky, did you find when you were down there, did you get chatting to Seamus Flanagan? He's going to be back training this week, and the fact that Shane O'Brien did so well, and now he's coming back in, another option that do you get that sense that Limerick are building again?
Oh, very much so. I mean, I interviewed Shane Flanagan, and he's back training now this week. He said he might have been able to push himself to play in the Munster final, but he felt that there was a danger he could tweak the hamstring again, and it would push back his recovery days. So, no, he's back now. He's working under the guidance of the many people in Limerick, as all county players have to now. And he's very conscious that there's players coming in on the block. The Shane O'Brien now, Peter Casey's not. But at the same time, I think the way it is with John Kiley, it's a kind of, he has a couple of options now going into different games. And at the end of the day, there's no team going to win in All-Ireland or going to win 5 in a row that doesn't have a very strong bench. I think by having Shane O'Brien coming, and it's not so long ago since I saw Shane O'Brien and ironically Adam Hogan as well for Clare. I saw those guys playing in colleges hurling championships. I was covering those games, and how quickly they both blossomed. But O'Brien was always a star in the making. He played very well last Sunday. Seamus Flanagan is still a seasoned player, and if things got tense in any match and tight, and that Flanagan, if he's not started, he'd be a serious man to bring on.
And just looking forward to this weekend, Oisín. So we know that Cork are going to be against Offaly, Laois against Wexford. Just to start off with Offaly, and it was interesting seeing Dan Burke of Offaly being interviewed this week by Michael Verney, and he goes, it's unreal, some week for Offaly, some week for us. There isn't much of a turnaround, and we're all knackered, but I suppose we'll stay going. I can't believe it. It's unbelievable. And it goes on in that sort of vein. What a player he is, by the way. What a prospect. But if any team is going to rip you apart, if you're tired or if you're not one of the very top teams, surely it's Cork. They piled on the misery during the league, scoring, I think it was 6 goals.
Yeah, but Offaly gave Kilkenny a rattle during the league. They're in good form going into this, as in playing-wise, but also just in a good place. The pressure's off them. Will they win it? No, they won't. I think Cork will beat them well. I have to say, I don't like these preliminary quarterfinals. I think they're tokenistic. I think there's a way that you could put these teams in the championship a little bit earlier, but we can go back to structures. Shane, have you got another structures conversation in you today? I don't know. But look, it's a shot to nothing for Offaly. If they go close, people will say fair play. If they don't go close, people will say, well, you know what? Sure, they're coming from the second tier and they've had no rest. And it's look, they have nothing to lose going into this, but I think it's a big ask them to go again this weekend against a team like Cork, who are kind of primed and waiting. Now, I did Cork Antrim, was it last year they met in the preliminary? No, 2 years ago I think they met in the preliminary quarterfinal in Corrigan Park. They weren't amazing, but they got the job done. I think it'll be the same this weekend.
And Nicky, do you look at any of these Offaly players and think, okay, well, maybe they can get a bit of a win here with, Dan Burke if he's roaming around? And I'm thinking, okay, maybe someone like Niall O'Leary would come out on him, or it is like Charlie Mitchell was so good last week. Can he do a bit of damage? I mean, where can Offaly get little wins? We don't expect them to win the game, but where can they sort of lay down markers?
Well, first of all, I believe that these 2 games of the next weekend shouldn't be taking place at all. I think Offaly have won 2 All-Irelands 1 week after the other. It was an absolutely fantastic achievement, and they should be celebrating that and go into next year's Leinster campaign having come off the back of 2 great wins. There is a likelihood now on Saturday that they're going to come up against a Cork team that has found its mojo. And bear in mind, if you look back on the National Hurling League results this year, Offaly got destroyed by Cork in that one. Now, Cork are going to be up on the double in Tullamore because their footballers are playing Tyrone, so they're going to have a huge crowd there, and Tullamore will be packed. So, look, I just feel this is a game that, while the players themselves, and again, I spoke to Jason Sampson on Tuesday down in Clare, and they're keen to play the match, but they do realise, he did reference back to the game against Cork in the league, and it's the one game where they were really run over big time. So they have a bit of work to do there. And how is their hearts going to be in it after coming off a high? The likes of Dan Burke, 2 All-Irelands 1 week after the rest. What's in it for him, to be honest, about knowing that Offaly, don't have a chance of going much further in the competition, to be honest about it. So I'm a bit sceptical about that. Look, all Offaly can do is hopefully their supporters can draw on their inner kind of belief that they have in themselves and try and say, look, this is a game we have to stand up and be counted and do the best we can, knowing that they're playing a team that has really found its form now. And it's somewhat similar with Laois. Even a bit harder for Laois because they realise when they look back at the Joe McDonagh, it was a game they could have won. The Offaly probably deserved to win, and they have to play a Wexford team that wants to get on the again. Spoke to Laois in on Tuesday as well, and all he wants to talk about was the Laois match. He wasn't even interested in talking about the possibility of playing Clare next. So they're very focused on that, and while they will be without Liam Ryan, it is very difficult to see Laois and Offaly getting through these games, because it is very looking like Clare. It's looking like Clare, Wexford, and Cork. It's very hard to get off that. But I do hope the two games are fairly competitive. But I do think we have to rethink playing those games for the Joe McDonagh. Let them enjoy the Joe McDonagh. It is tier 2 for a reason, and you get up to tier 1 when you're successful. That's cruel in sport, but that's sport all over the place. Unless we want to completely tweak the championship to push it from the way.
Yeah, that's a fair point, Nicky. And I just double-checked the score from the league game, Oisín. It was 5-28-16. And that was one of the hat-tricks that Alan Connolly scored. I remember Shane Barrett, did he start that game or come on? But certainly towards the end of the game, he set up a couple of goals brilliantly, like such an excellent player. And do you think that, like, okay, let's say Offaly take, a heavy beating here, that at least their players will come away from it, and they've played Division 1 this year, but being like, okay, at least we know the standard we have to get up to survive in what will be a more forgiving Leinster next year than playing a Cork?
I wonder about that because it's so far removed from your next big game. Do you take anything from it? Also, these lads have been celebrating. I know that different counties take it different ways and treat it different ways, and some of them kind of let the lads off till Tuesday, some of them let them off on the Sunday night, and then they say, right, lads, back at it on Monday. Now, if you look at these quarterfinals last year, they can have a big effect on the team that goes on. People don't talk about it, but Dublin last year played Carlow, and Carlow gave them plenty of it, and Dublin looked flat-footed in the second half against Clare, and I would track it back to that game against Carlow the week before. Now, would Clare beat Dublin again? You go back to that 10 times. If they met 10 times, would Clare win most games? Yeah, they probably would. So if I was the Cork and Wexford teams going into this weekend, I would have that in mind. And I wonder, is that a worry that, you could win this handy, but it could take something out of you? Now, Dublin didn't beat Carlow handy last year. It looked handy scoreline-wise, but it wasn't. So, but regards Offaly, Shane, yeah, look, I think maybe when you have a Cork team who have to put you to the sword or who have to win and maybe come up with a good performance and build some momentum having had a few weeks off, maybe it does put something at the back of your mind. This is what it takes to get up to the level in championship. But yeah, I don't know if it's a factor this weekend because it's so long to the next championship game for Offaly, unless of course they win. I doubt they will, at least the same, but it's sports, so you never know. There's always a chance.
Yeah, and sometimes I think of some of the players that are put up the week of these matches in a match that they can't really win. So, like David Dooley of Laois, who looks a really good prospect, he was talking about, like, obviously it was a downer coming away with a loss against Offaly, but what an opportunity we have on Saturday. We're playing Wexford at home in Portlaoise. They're going to bring a big crowd, and hopefully the Laois supporters will come out in force as well. There's an All-Ireland quarter-final on the line too. We'll set our minds towards it because it's obviously going to be a tough one, but it's one we're looking forward to. So, Nicky, do you think they genuinely believe that and are thinking, well, if Antrim can beat Wexford, so can we?
Well, that's precisely what David said to me as well. And I think, look, as it happens, the gap between Laois and Wexford is not as big as between Offaly and Cork. And Laois have traditionally given a decent account themselves against Wexford over the years, particularly in Portlaoise. So they feel they have a chance. But Willie Maher has a big job to try and get his players back up again, knowing that they may be left a bit behind him. Some players put in. I mean, the two midfielders scored 9 points between them, Aidan Corby and Paddy Purcell last Sunday. Purcell's 9th point skimmed the crossbar and it all took the paint off the crossbar. Had it gone in, it would probably have turned the game around in that. So the bottom line is that there's still good hurlers in Laois. Maybe a few of them coming towards the end. We'll have to go back to the younger lad who played well minor the last couple of years in under 20s. But I think Laois will see themselves with a bit of a chance. But at the same time, having lost to Joe McDonagh, how can you go out? I know Wexford lost the Leinster final to Kilkenny, but it was a game that we look back on and realizing that, yeah, could have gone our way, could have gone. But I think Wexford know the prospect for them going forward, and a game against Clare is something in Semple Stadium along with Dublin and Cork. That's a double header that Wexford want to be present at.
Yeah, and Nicky, I'm sure you probably got a word with Lee Chin during that launch also. Do you look at his team and think, Conor McDonald, Rory O'Connor, Keane Byrne is looking really good, and think, why can't these lads challenge? Or do you think they probably just have a couple of areas on the pitch where they can be exploited and that's why they'll come up short again?
Well, look, to be fair, against Kilkenny, I mean, this was Kilkenny's first win over Wexford in a while, a couple of weeks ago in Nolan Park. So to be fair, there's been nothing between teams, and that day in Nolan Park was only a couple of balls between them. Well. So, I mean, Kilkenny got into the Leinster final, by the skin of their teeth that particular day. So there's not much in it. I mean, Clare or Wexford are a good team. I think they realised they didn't play the way they wanted to play against Antrim. Now, credit for that has to go to Antrim, because when you get up to fast to play those games, Antrim are a kind of a team inspired in those locations. But I think Wexford have still got a fair bit to offer now. They're a decent balanced team, and they're doing well under Keith Rossiter. And I think having one of their own locals, I think a bit more out maybe than others might. It's just the way it works out. So I think I'll overcome Laois. I don't think there's any doubt about that. It will be a huge shock. And themselves and Clare will be a cracking game. And I do think, by the way, that Dublin, talking to Conor O'Donoghue, they're absolutely down in the dumps altogether. They realise that they're a far better team than they are. And I think Dublin, I couldn't see them beating Cork, but I think Dublin will surprise a lot of people with the way they might play against Cork.
And Oisín, actually, I wanted to bring this across to you. Like, everyone is assuming that Wexford will win this game, and obviously Cork will beat Offaly, and then we'll get to the quarterfinals, and everyone is thinking Cork will beat Dublin, and Clare will beat Wexford. But Wexford, with the quality they have, and it's only 10 years ago. Well, it's 10 years ago, so different players. But like, they knocked out Clare when they're All-Ireland champions. Yeah. They certainly don't fear Clare and feel that they'll be able to give them a game. And if Wexford were to go ahead and beat Clare, then all of a sudden you'd have Cork on a collision course with Kilkenny, and you could have Wexford against Limerick. So like, that could turn everyone's expectations upside down.
Yeah, and the thing with Wexford is, relatively recent Leinster champions under Davy Fitz, going well enough under Keith Rossiter, who's a very good manager. He's kind of his team are a reflection of him as a player. But the thing about Wexford is that they've done this over the last couple of years. They play down and they play up. Now, does that make sense when I say it like that? Do you know what I mean when I say that? Like, they can lose to a Westmeath who played well on that day, but then they can go out the next week and beat Kilkenny. So what are they going to do against Laois? Are they going to play down, or are they going to play up? So you'd look at Wexford in these kind of games and you'd say they should win it. Wouldn't trust them, because their record suggests they could play. Now, they could go out and win it by 20 points, but they could also, because their record suggests they could also struggle. I do like the fight of them. I like how they go about things. I like Rossiter as a manager. I like that Lee Chin continues to look like half a bull and half a ballerina, and how he hurls and how he can just plow through defenses and how he just causes absolute chaos. Liam Ryan, big player for them as well. Rec, they've just, and Conor MacDonald, again, when he's in the form for it, he looks a little better this year. Again, I could be reading that wrong. Happy to be open to correction on that one. I haven't seen a whole pile of Wexford, but like, he can be a good score getter and out in front and turn his defender and all that at times. But yeah, look, I think you'd nearly say with 100% confidence Cork will beat Offaly. Can you say with 100% confidence Wexford will beat Laois? 90, 85, but not 100.
Nicky, you've got to be feeling pretty good about where Kilkenny are at the moment. I know you were fired up for the match the other day, certainly beforehand, and I suppose you were able to be relaxed pretty early in that game.
Yeah, the game was over after 10 minutes, to be fair, and I thought, again, speaking to Micheál Donoghue after the match, he was down in the dumps, and the question I put was, how did they manage to allow Dublin to create, or Kilkenny to have so much space in Croke Park? The one thing you don't do with Kilkenny, irrespective of who the opponents are, you don't give Kilkenny that sort of freedom, because you had Richie Reid at the back and there was no one within 10 or 20 yards. He could spray a ball wherever he wanted to go to. With Adrian Mullen playing at 10, and he had to wander around the place, and he landed 7 points, and it could have been a lot more. So look, Kilkenny just were not closed down, and once that happened, the first goal was a great goal by Owen Cody, really from the end line, and then unfortunately Sean Brennan fluffed a Tommy Welsh delivery, and TJ with a nice tennis type swing put it in the back of the net, and it was over at that stage. So look, Dublin are definitely better than this. I haven't the slightest doubt that Dublin are a better team. I think they have a number of younger players that are making an impact, and if that crowd can stay together, that group of players with Micheál Donoghue, Noel Larkin and Franny Ford, I think they can make progress with that group of players. I think there's quality in that team, and I think they will show that against Cork. They won't win it, but from a Kilkenny point of view, there was the Kilkenny played very well. Kilkenny been steadily improving, and they'll be working hard. There was no great training last night. Now, there was an open night last night. We were inside it, but it was kind of light-hearted stuff where they allowed the kids to go in. Probably something they want to kind of just get done this week because they were getting a relatively slack week this week. So the next 2 weeks will be hell for leather, and then it'll be tapering off. And they'll obviously know within 2 weeks who they're going to be playing. So and it could be anybody yet, depending on the results. But there's a lot of possibilities here yet. And in a way, that probably makes it good from a hurling point of view, that the hearings in the semi-finals are not actually known. And I like that as a kind of looking in at it from the level I look in at it now. But now Kilkenny are good, and if they get everybody back, Mikey Carey obviously has a shoulder injury. He's a bit of a worry. But apart from that, the rest are all there. And while it will be hell for leather in training over the couple of weeks now, Kenny are in a decent spot now, and I think they're ready for anybody, to be quite frank about it. Can they win in All-Ireland? Yeah, absolutely they can. But are they good enough? Well, time will tell, because the number one team is still Limerick, to be fair.
Yeah, totally. Like we're all going to say that Limerick are number one, but if you're looking at this Kilkenny team, Nicky, and saying reasons we can win the All-Ireland, like what are the main things that really make you think that Kilkenny could get over the line?
I think this year, assuming Mikey Carey is back from injury, you're going to have Mikey Carey and David Blanchfield as two wing backs. It's going to strengthen that part of the field very, very much. They're two excellent players. They're physical players, good markers. They're good going forward, and they're good distributors of the ball inside. And I think they're going to be a big asset. I do think the forwards are beginning to take a bit shape. I mean, TJ Reid is just playing out of his skin at the moment. And for Guy, we have no right to expect TJ playing at the moment. He's hungry for it, and Mullen and Cody have gone up a few notches. And don't anyone write off the likes of Martin Keoghan. Billy Ryan is hurling very well at the moment. He had an indifferent part of the Leinster Championship, but he's really come good now as part of the team. And there's a couple of subs there. Our own Tom Phelan from across the field from me here, Walter Wood, Connor Forty. There's still plenty of energy in those guys as well, Killian Buckley. And while some have a lot of miles on the clock, maybe when you want guys to come in and give that 15, 20 minutes of hurling, if you have the experience behind you, maybe they're the sort of ideal person to ask to do something in that case. So Kilkenny are in a good position, to be honest about it. But look, there's a lot of hurling to be played yet. Are they good enough to win an All-Ireland? Yes. But there's no doubt about it that huge obstacle that is Limerick particularly is there. And I wouldn't write off whoever they're playing in the semi-final yet. It's still anybody. It's a very open competition at this stage now, and it's far from clear who's going to be the finalists, to be honest about it.
I'd agree with Nicky for all the reasons he outlined there, particularly the improvement of players that were already there and the increased options on the bench. I mean, you look at Cian Kenny. Cian was playing well even before this year, but this year he seems to have taken it up a notch. Billy Ryan looked really strong, looked like he was going to make more of an impact in games at times this year, and that's what you want from Billy Ryan. Walter Walsh is back and looking mean and looking hungry and just looking like and Walter does this thing where he's a big man, but he's gliding along the ground. I don't know how he does it. He's got nice soft skills, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Shane Murphy, a guy who pulled up trees during the league, has had to be happy with the bench the last couple of games, but what an option to bring off the bench. I spoke to Taggy about Adrian Mullen and said, what do you like about Adrian? He said, he's always sprinting. He's just always sprinting. What can you do to stop that? He's always sprinting, always moving it around, always taking a good option. Mossy Keoghan again, just getting that bit stronger and stronger and stronger. And Owen Cody being Owen Cody. And I don't know, Shane, was it yourself or someone who pointed out that little Cody shimmy, that little Cody step? It's almost football-esque. You'd see it more in football. But like that ability is amazing. So I think my own view is that it will be a Kilkenny Limerick final, and I don't think it's a fait accompli. I don't think Limerick are the favourites, obviously, because of all they've done in the last couple of years and the squad they have. But I give Kilkenny a right shot at this still. Yeah,
like Adrian Mullen he's a hurler in the year and waiting. So is Owen Cody. Like Nicky
and John Donnelly, by the way. Donnelly, we forgot to mention John Donnelly is again has been solid over the last couple of years, but has gone up a notch this year. And you could even see it during the weekend, despite the fact that he was like his hand is clearly, or his thumb, there's an issue. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but he still affected the game. And he still went out and he played. And it was funny. Eddie Brennan was telling me a story during the week. I think he told it on the Irish Independent, the Throw-In podcast, where Martin Comerford went to Brian Cody in 2002 and said, Brian, I've two broken bones in my hand. And Cody said, what are you telling me, Martin? In other words, can you play or can you not play? Donnelly has the injury, but he could play, and he showed it.
Yeah, well, Nicky, when even I'm looking at Kilkenny now and thinking these lads could get it done, that says it all, really.
Yeah, look, we just need to keep everything in context now. Look, let's not get carried away. There's the semi-finals to be played. I'm seeing the lads on the tweets here, and it is of course like Cork, but that's assuming Cork beat Dublin. And while I accept their favourites, I wouldn't totally write off Dublin at this stage. So that's why I'm saying there's a little bit to think about yet. No, look at Kilkenny. If Kilkenny were to play Cork in a semi-final, that would be one hell of a game because Cork will bring enormous pace to the game. And it's a question of Kilkenny counteract that pace, and Kilkenny have a physically strong team as well. So, look, there was nothing between the teams that played in the National League down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh there earlier in the year, and while National League matches and Championship matches, people would say are very different. Nevertheless, you can look at the pointers as to how the game might be played in that, And so, no, Kilkenny are in a decent spot at the moment. But said all, they were in a decent spot this time last year as well. They were waiting the semi-final also. So let's see what works out.
Yeah, who would you be most afraid of meeting in the semi-final, Nicky? Obviously, you can't meet Limerick, so we won't even mention them.
Well, sure, look at it. It's very likely look at it. It's Cork. Well, it's the bottom line. It's Cork really who Kenny will meet now. If Dublin were to beat Cork, and then that would throw a cat among the pigeons and that. So you don't know. But look at it. To be honest about it, Shane, no, Kilkenny or Derry King and the lads will not be thinking at this stage, oh, Jay, we don't want to pay them. We don't. The bottom line is you can't even consider that. You'd simply wait for the result of the match and say, no, that's who we're playing. Focus accordingly and plan accordingly, because tactically, depending on who you're playing, you may have slightly different tactics depending on the players that you're going to be facing and the one-on-one match and all of that sort of stuff. That's the stuff that takes place behind closed doors when the selectors sit down and chat about things. So it's only after the quarterfinals are played on next Saturday week that both John Kiley and Derry King and their assembly backroom team will sit down and plan their strategy around the semi-final. And to be honest about it, there's a chap there saying Colin Cronin Cork probably the best. That's a fair point. It's a fair point, but I wouldn't just absolutely assume that, because Wexford and Clare and Dublin as well, who may be the third team in that trio, they would have something to say about that. You just cannot make assumptions at this stage of the Hurling Championship, because down at knockout stages, it's a one-off game. It's not as if you're playing the round robin in Leinster or Munster. In one-off games, anything can happen. A team can lose a player early on. A player might be sick, can't play the game. You often have to hold fire, really making a final call on that, until almost before throw, until you know what the teams are.
Okay, Oisín, you have to tip away, so we'll chat to you again. Thanks very much for joining us.
Yeah, pleasure, Nicky. Take care. See you soon. Shane, good
luck.
luck,
Oisín, mind yourself. Take care.
For having me, lads.
Okay.
And did you look at Clare the other day? And I mean, they didn't perform well. Tony Kelly said as much. But where do you think they came up short?
Well, I didn't get to see the Munster final in the way I would normally watch it, because I was preparing stuff for Sunday Evening Sport, and then being involved with the radio station, I was involved in a bit of politics as well, in terms of reporting and that. So I think overall, just Limerick just got a grip on the game, and Clare were just not able to respond. Now, you could point to the ball that hit the post in the second half. You could point to another couple of scores that went wide, and you could say if they had to go over, it would have been a much tighter game and all that. And yes, but I think in one way you would be clutching at straws there, because I think Limerick was that bit superior. Their ability to win ball and bring our own players into the game and move the ball forward was pretty impressive. And when you look back and analyse the Clare players versus the Limerick players, too many of the Clare players just didn't play up to form that you need to play in them to win a Munster final. And ultimately, the score was spot on from that perspective, to be honest about it.
Well, Nicky, brilliant for joining us today. I know we only got you at short notice, so really do appreciate that, and we'll no doubt see you again very soon. All
right, Shane, take care. Good luck.
All the best, all the best. Okay, delighted to say now joined by Cian Johnson to talk about all things football, really, Cian. Can you just start us off with the game that you're looking forward to most this weekend? Obviously, it's the final round of the group games. Feels like the championship is actually only starting now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's good to have some games where there's actually consequences for losing. It's some drag, like, since the third week of January at this stage. Like, it's madness. But yeah, it's good.
Like, even Jarlath Burns admitted it's a bit much, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and like it just is, because like you're like, right, the league's starting. It's not great. Provincials, it's not great. start of the group stage is not great either. Like, so it is a bit mad. But I suppose this is the weekend that last year it all kind of kicked off, and teams will be getting knocked out, or teams will be going straight to a quarter final, and then others straight to a preliminary. So yeah, look, it's exciting anyway. It's coming into kind of that peak summertime. So knockout championship and the Euros is starting tomorrow, and club championship around the corner soon. So yeah, it's getting to the exciting time. Now I do say that, and it's spilling rain here in Offaly. So yeah, the summer for you.
GA league tables has kind of done a lot of the work for us here in terms of, the context of what's coming this weekend. So in terms of the things to look out for, Group 1, anything less than a win for Derry and they'll be eliminated. Armagh only need a draw to top the group. Derry Westmeath is on GA Go. Armagh against Galway is on RT. So just in terms of the table there, you can see Armagh and Galway are already through. Westmeath and Derry, that's a straight shootout. Then Group 2, I'll just bring it up here. You can see Dublin and Mayo, same job again as Group 1. They're on 4 each. Roscommon and Cavan, they're going to battle it out to see who gets in next. So you can see there, Dublin and Mayo is a straight shootout for top spot. Cavan need a win to stay in the competition. Dublin Mayo, that's on RT. Group 3, Cork are in control of this group. Again, you can see this here. Cork top, Donegal second on 2 points. Tyrone, they're on 2, and so are Clare are actually on 0. So Clare need a win there for sure anyway. Then Group 4, Kerry versus Louth. And Kerry absolutely smashed Louth last year. They're on 4 points, Kerry. Louth are on 3. They're both through, Monaghan and Meath. And I suppose just like you can tell us which game you want to talk about first, Keane, but certainly coming top in that extra week off, it makes some difference.
Yeah, definitely. Completely agree. Like, I really do think that, like, to win All Ireland, you have to top your group, because I know this is only the second edition of this championship structure, but like last year it was Kerry, Dublin and Derry topped their group and they were in the semi-finals. Monaghan did kind of book the trend but didn't make the final. So I really think, like, if you have to play it this weekend, next weekend in a preliminary quarter final, and then go into an All-Ireland quarter final against a seeded team that's had 2 weeks off, like, I suppose Galway and Armagh is a straight shootout for first, and it was the same stage last year. They played and Galway threw it away. A week later then they're playing Mayo and they're out of the championship. So like, your season can really go up in flames quickly if you don't top your group. And like, even Cork and Tyrone, like, I think this is probably Cork's biggest game they'll play all season, because the consequences for them losing is they'll hand the group back to Donegal and Tyrone comes second. So Cork could be straight to a quarter final with 2 weeks off, or they could be going away in a preliminary quarter final next week. So it really is massive that you top your group. Like, I suppose there is games where they're trying to stay in the championship as well, like you just mentioned there, like Derry Westmeath, the loser's gone, Roscommon Cavan, the loser's gone, and Monaghan Meath. So yeah, look, it's all to play for, and I can't wait for it.
So Galway Armagh, I was at that unbelievable game a couple of years ago, the one with the boxing matches, the penalty shootout, Rian O'Neill's unbelievable equaliser from the ground out around the 45. Like, do you expect this to be a big game? And just if you're to talk specifically about Galway, are they starting to pull everything together at the right time?
Yeah, I think so. I know they only got over Westmeath by a couple of points, but Westmeath have proven that they're a tough nut to crack, and especially being away from home. Now, saying that, like, we've been talking about Galway's injuries all year, and it looks like Comer's still out for another while, and maybe Sean Kelly. So, look, it is going to be tough for them to beat Armagh maybe without them. But I actually seen a stat there yesterday. Galway haven't conceded a goal since round 4 of the league against Derry, which is nearly back in March. So, like, I mean, they do have real depth in their defence from last year when they got Kieran Malloy, Liam Silk back. Like, Johnny McGrath, like, the man-marking jobs he's doing is unbelievable. Like Armagh, like, that was, I suppose it was a bit of a statement win for them last 2 weeks ago against Derry, but everybody seems to be doing that to Derry at this stage. So how much can you read into that? I don't know. Like, if they can play like that, they're a match for anyone. But saying that, like, the loser here, as we said, there's in a preliminary next week, and you could get anyone. So yeah, look, it really is up for decision. Yeah,
like, who's the key player on both sides here? Like, is it as simple as saying Shane Walsh is always, he's the main man on one side, and then maybe on the other side Rian O'Neill, or are there other players that you think could decide this game?
Yeah, I think Conor Turbott's having a brilliant season for Armagh. Like, he scored 1-3 or 1-4 the last day, 4 or 5 points maybe in the Ulster final. He's just electric when he gets going. And even that goal he scored there against Derry last day, like, we need more goals. We need more goals like that. Like, first of all, how we got there, McCluskey decided he was going to go forward. Turbott just cheated and said, off you go. and then Brennan Rodgers plays a blind hand pass, and then he's in on goal. Like, if we could get a couple of goals like that every year, forwards wouldn't have to be chasing their man back the field, doing mass runs for nothing. But yeah, like Armagh have serious depth even on their bench, and like you like Stephen Campbell, like he could start some days, he mightn't be in other days. Jason Duffy, Nugent, like they have serious depth, and like has the team ever suffered that many setbacks like in the last couple of years and keeps coming back? So it is a testament to McGeeney and the setup he has there. I know he ships a bit of criticism for not getting over the line, but he is keeping the show on the road. Like when you see other teams, maybe like Derry and even Tyrone are kind of faltering. So yeah, look, it is a tough one to call. I think it's these are neutral venues, these games. Yeah. So I don't know where that game is on. Do you have it there now?
For which game are you talking about?
The venue for Galway Armagh.
That's in Markovich Park. Actually, you'll love this, right? I was out playing golf with a few friends there last Friday, and one of my friends who hurls for Cavan, Nicky Kenny, I'll name and shame, no problem at all. And he mentioned about playing in a few different grounds this year for the Cavan hurlers. And he said to me, "Why is it called Malkovich Park?" You know, the actor John Malkovich. But I had to disabuse him of his notions there. But yeah, it's on in Malkovich Park.
Yeah. So look, it's hard to know really. Like even moving on to Dublin Mayo there, like having that in Hyde Park, like is probably a bit of a leveler. Because if that was in Croke Park, I'd give Mayo no hope. But I seen even Lee Keegan was saying this morning that, you know, Mayo have a good record in Hyde Park, but that's because they're playing Roscommon all the time. So
love that.
That was a nice old dig. But yeah, I don't know. Like I was thinking about this, and look, Kevin McStay is not going to do this. This is not going to happen. But I think back to Premier League fans, right? About I think it was 2010 or 2011. Mick McCarthy was over Wolves, and they had a midweek game against Man United, and they were playing Burnley on the weekend. And he made 10 changes. They were going to lose to Man United anyway, lost, and then they beat Burnley at the weekend. And I just think that Mayo could expend all their energy and play a 10 out of 10 and still lose this game. And then they're going to have to go and play someone then next week. Like I know they're not going to do that, but I just think that like they're not going to beat Dublin anyway, in my opinion. And I just think they could be out with the championship next week. So it is a tough one.
Do you think a manager would do that? Like, because if he's seen to do it, as Mick McCarthy at the time, because I remember it, there was such a narrative around it then. It had so much coverage. Like, do you think in the world of GEA, you could get away with doing it?
It's hard to know. Like, maybe if you only made a couple of changes, if you're carrying injuries or whatever. But, I mean, Kevin McStay, like, for him to stand in front of the group and say, look, we're not going to beat Dublin anyway, and then we end up in the All-Ireland series, we have to beat them at some stage. So he's not going to do that. But it was just crossed my mind that, like, next week, if they finish second, like, they could play Derry, they could play Cork somewhere, and if they do really go for it, empty the tank, end up losing by 3 or 4, and then if they turn around next weekend, look, it's a difficult one.
Yeah, especially when they're already through. Like, I totally get what you mean. It's just that if they ended up doing it, which is understandable for the reasons you said, and then they lost the following week again, you'd nearly get the boot for it. You'd nearly get the mark for it. And by the way, another game that I think is going to be really tasty, Derry against Westmeath, that's in Newry, Saturday at 7 o'clock. And, you know, that's pretty much winner. Well, it is winner stays on. And Westmeath could have easily knocked out Tyrone last year because John Heslin had that late chance that leaked wide. But the Shelminator wants to know if Mystic Keane has any predictions for this match. Because Derry have been falling apart. Yeah,
they have. And it's actually scary how, like, so many years of good work can nearly disappear in a couple of games. It's mad. And, like, they went from being probably the hardest team to score against in the country to one of the easiest. And, like, it is hard to know where it's all going wrong. I know they've lost nearly their whole half-back line with injuries, but there's some things that there's kind of no excuse for. Even, like, the lack of discipline. Like, you know, you had the McKinless stamp. Like, Kieran McFall comes on and gets 2 yellow cards in the space of 10 minutes. And, like, what really done it for me was Conor Glass. Like, he strikes me as, like, the ultimate team player, like, that wouldn't do anything to hamper the team, put the team before himself. Like, Emmett Bradley was substituted there against Armagh, and Conor Glass was, like, looking to the sideline with his arms out as if to say, what's that about? So, like, when you see things like that going on, you know, if the players don't believe in the management, I don't know, like, there probably will be clear the air meetings, but, you know, if that's going on, you probably have to clear the room. So
he's probably gone, isn't he? Mickey Hart's probably gone after this year.
I would say so, yeah, unless they can resurrect this. Like, like you would expect them to beat Westmeath, but the way they're going, you wouldn't be sure. And then the thing about it is that they're more likely going to finish third. So if they win, and then they're going to play a second team, which could be going away to Louth, which will be tasty with Mickey Hart, and there's a strong chance Tyrone could finish second as well. So there'll be tasty fixtures coming, but yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult one, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of soul searching in Derry over the winter, like of where it all went wrong. Because how can you go from back-to-back Ulster champions and beating Dublin to this? Like it's a bit mad.
Yeah, it certainly is. Just some of the other games. Like, what else would really like Louth? They've been so good this year under Ger Brennan. We're talking about Mickey Hart, the man who's taken over from him in the wee county. Louth have been so good, but surely they're not going to lose by 23 points like they did last year.
Yeah, you'd hope not. Like you'd hope, because they lost something similar to Dublin, and then they fixed it this year. They only ended up losing by 4. Now Kerry have had 2 big wins, but Monaghan and Meath didn't put up much of a fight. So you'd expect Louth to put in a decent performance. Look, it's hard to know with Kerry. Like I still think they have kind of structural issues from the league that we haven't seen tested yet. And even in the Cork game, Cork kind of exposed them with lots of goal chances that they could have finished off. So it is hard to know with Kerry. I think if you're picking a footballer of the year at the minute, for me, it'd be Thomas Sullivan. I think he is ridiculous. Like, he's kicking 3 points from play every game while doing a man-marking job. I know.
Come on now, Keane. Let's be realistic. Man-marking job involves, our team has the ball there for 10 minutes. The opposition have sat back. If I crawled on my hands and knees, I'd be able to find the attack here. It's not. Come on. True.
But he has been man-marking top players in the past, and it's still got up the field to kick points. But I know we'll probably chat in a few minutes about the rule changes and about there's one where you have to keep 3 inside 65, but I suppose that's where you could lose the likes of Thomas Sullivan, where he wants to man-mark a player. If they're playing Dublin, like, you need him man-marking someone, but you don't want to take away from that. So,
well, it actually gives the management a decision to make. Do we actually play him as a wing back now all the time, or are we going to limit him? Or when we see him get the ball, does somebody else sprint back inside the 45 or 65 or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it like, do you use him as your number 7, and then maybe you mightn't have full backline players who can mark? So it does, it gives you issues anyway. Yeah. So look, it is an exciting weekend, but I suppose.
Hey, well, who's worse between Monaghan and Meath? Like, so one of these teams is going to go through. It's going to be a case of who was least bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, geez, Meath were awful. That was one of the worst performances I've seen there against Kerry. I don't really understand how they've not progressed, because they've known they were in this situation because they had the free pass from winning the Hudson Cup. Like, Colin O'Rourke's been saying all year that they're taking a long-term view to injuries, having lads right for this.
He says that they don't have Con O'Callaghan's and David Clifford's and all that. What do you make of that comment?
I was just going to say that. Yeah, like, I don't know where he's coming at with that, because like, everybody knows that. Like, I don't think anyone's going around saying that Meath have like a brilliant squad or whatever, and he should be getting more out of them. But like, just the message that sends out to his own players and to the supporters, like, everybody knows there's no David Clifford's in Meath or whatever, but that's no excuse for like the way that they're playing at the minute. Like Ger Brennan's not coming out saying that out loud, or any other managers who are punching above their weight. Like, even Clare have done really well, considering the players they're missing. So I just don't get it. Look, I know he put his neck on the line, he took the gig. Henry Shefflin said it's easy to stay at home and watch the telly or whatever, but I just don't think it's the right message to be sending out.
Yeah, do you give Clare any chance this weekend? They're going up against Donegal, and obviously Donegal would like to be top, but Cork are there on merit. But do you give Clare any chance of a shock here?
I wouldn't say so, no. Just based off Donegal getting caught the last day and having 2 weeks to fix it. And I think, look, Donegal will be hoping for a Tyrone win. And I think Jim McGuinness will be saying, like, if they do win and we don't do our job. So I think Donegal will be strong favourites there. I think the handicap is -7 for that game. I was looking at it. I think I'd nearly be fancying Donegal to cover that. I just think Clare have had a brilliant season for the players that they're missing, but I just think it'll probably be a step too far. And sometimes we can see that in the last games, like, can be a bit of a blowout. So I expect Donegal maybe a heavy win there.
And just in terms of Cork then, at times I look at Cork and think, why aren't these lads doing that bit better? Why aren't they challenging or pushing the top teams all the time? But they could lay down a marker this weekend, especially knowing that they'll have that extra week if they can get over the line against Tyrone. And that game's on. Actually, where is that game on? For whatever reason.
That's a doubleheader with the Hurling, with Cork and Offaly.
Tullamore, yeah, okay.
Yeah, like Cork have been brilliant this season. Like so far, they had a shaky enough start to the league, and then they finished the league really strongly and had a strong Munster campaign. Like they went very close to Kerry in that game. People seem to not really mention that they're only a couple of points away from Kerry that day, and it was in Killarney. So, like they have put up really good performances. Like nobody's seen that coming against Donegal the last day. Like I know it was 2:00 on a Saturday and it wasn't on telly, but Jesus, like nobody's seen that coming. Like everyone was saying. There was Malachy Shirkin had a piece there saying can anyone stop Donegal from winning All Ireland, and then a couple of hours later they're beaten by Cork. So geez, that was some result, and I don't know, was there a reason that wasn't in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, or like because having it there with the supporters, and it just looked like a tighter venue for them to maybe get results. So yeah, it was massive for them. I do think that like Cavan and McCurry are going to take some watching, and Cork do have good defenders. Like Cork have done reasonably well on Clifford anytime they've played. Kevin Flav, Rory Maguire, Daniel O'Mahony, very strong defenders. So I do think that's probably where the game's going to be decided. Cork forwards probably haven't clicked in the way they've liked. They're getting scores kind of from all over the pitch. Their 3 goals the last day were from 3 defenders. So yeah, look, Cork are probably going to need to get a spread of scores, whereas Tyrone are going to be relying on Cavan and McCurry for big games. So it's whether they can quieten them. It'll probably decide it.
Are you pumped about the games this weekend?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, like it's been too long. Like you're just watching kind of glorified challenge matches nearly all year. I'm probably going to head into the doubleheader in Tullamore just to see the game up close. I know they're both on GA Go, so yeah. Look, I can't wait. The Euro is starting tomorrow night. Can't wait for that as well. So it's going to be a good weekend. I know the hurling is probably you have 2 games where you're expecting the results. So yeah, you may have changed to a football fan this weekend, Shane.
Yeah. Hey, look, there's a football fan in me. Actually, believe it or not, when I was a young lad, the order of sports that I liked were soccer number 1, Gaelic football number 2, and hurling number 3. It's flipped around a lot since.
How did that happen?
I don't know, whatever it was, like, in this whole kind of narrative around winning the hearts and minds or whatever, like, because there was so many soccer magazines, there was so much soccer on TV, and, the Ireland soccer team, I think that was probably the key thing, because they were so good when I was a kid, pushing for the Euros and the World Cup and all that. Things flipped eventually, but that's the way I used to be.
Yeah, it's mad. And even you were saying there a couple of weeks ago, I was listening about the... say there's so much soccer on TV that there's always the next game. Like, and I couldn't agree more with that. Like, because I love soccer and I watch any soccer game. But you think like even Arsenal and Man City played there around February, and it was built up like the 2 best teams in the league, and Sky were selling it, and it was 0-0, like the worst game of all time. But like nobody said that. Even the pundits were kind of just crediting Arsenal for getting the draw. Blah blah blah. Move on to the next one. Whereas in football, like you get Kerry Mead, that was terrible. And all the pundits are telling you this is terrible, and then you move on to the next game. And I actually think the hurling pundits are a lot better for the game. Now, look, you're going to tell me hurling is better than football, and I'm not going to argue with you. But, like, like the likes of Anthony Daly and Tommy Walsh, like, if you don't even like hurling, like, them boys nearly make you want to pick up a hurl the way they talk about it, So I think the pundits kind of have a responsibility to not hammer it as much as they do.
I was going to ask you, obviously you're an Offaly man and you're more of a football man. I actually don't know if you've heard it all, but like how much of like this sort of excitement, this sort of hurling bonanza with the under-20s, and the Joe McDonagh less so, but obviously that is really important. But like, how big is this hurling fever with the under-20s?
Yeah, hurling is massive. Yeah, like I would have played probably up to under-21, and like when I was about 15 or 16, I was probably equal at both, but I just enjoyed football a bit more, and then went in with Offaly in development squads. But like it's hard to know, because when the Offaly 20s won the football in 2021, it was nearly the opposite, and now it's almost flipped. Like I don't know, because the footballers are like off football is at such a low ebb now. Like the minors were beaten by Waterford this year in a 2nd-tier competition. The 20s were beaten by Carlow in a 2nd-tier competition, and the seniors never won a game in the Tailteann Cup. And the hurlers is nearly the opposite now. And like from my point of view, obviously I'd like to see both going well, but I am a football man. But yeah, like it does seem to be everyone wants to pick up a hurl now, and even clubs that are maybe in football areas or dual areas are looking at hurling. And like the club structure in senior this year in Offaly is a joke. Like there's
nobody getting knocked out.
There's 8 senior teams. Everyone's in a quarter final anyway. Whereas in the hurling, there's 10 teams in 2 groups of 5, and the top 3 come out. So like even as a neutral, like if you're gonna, like our club championship starting in about 5 weeks, and like as a neutral, you're not gonna. Why would you go to a football game? Do you know? So I really think we have a lot of work to do and getting the football side of things back on the road. You know.
You're for Ban, aren't you?
Ban, yeah.
Is it a dual club or do you hurl?
Yeah, our dual club is Belmont. We'd be 50-50 now, and it is very tough on us because like our dual players have to play 14 or 15 weeks in a row in the summer, you know, and it hampers both clubs, and there's no way around it. Like Ballinamere would be dual as well. They're the only other dual senior club. They've hurling and they'd be Durham in football. And there's no way around it. And we do dual sessions where like the hurlers will warm up separate and dual players we will hurling for maybe 40 minutes and then come finish with us. Look, I can only speak from talking to the lads, but I don't know how they do it like in prime summertime, because you pick up one injury, you have a hurling match next week, football the week after. There's no way around it. And like say like the likes of Kilcormac, Burr, Kildare would have an advantage on Belmont, and the likes of Road, Tullamore, Edenderry would have an advantage on us in the football. So look, there is no way around it.
Yeah, it's the same in Dublin. Like they're at the moment, like I think the dual players in Dublin club, they're in a run of like 9 games in about 25 days or something like that. It's absolutely nuts. You've 15 football league games and 11 hurling, 26 league games between mid-February to the start of July, and then you have to go and play a championship week on week on week. So nuts, absolutely nuts. Hey, Cian, I wanted to ask you about the Tailteann Cup quarterfinals. Kildare Laois, Fermanagh Antrim, Down, Wicklow, and Sligo Limerick. Like Kildare Laois, those two counties do not like each other.
No, they don't. No, and like I was actually watching a bit of Laois in New York there and GACO, and it looked like there was a bit of a shock on for a while. Just the weather was terrible. I think. Oh, sorry, John O'Keenan's corrected me. Tullamore up senior hurling. Yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah, like it was terrible weather, and I was actually listening to Anthony Nash there during the week. He was saying that he hates playing in Port Laois because there's always a breeze. But yeah, no, like New York almost caught Laois. It was Mark Timmins scored a goal in the second half. It was looking like there was a shock on, and like he's been on the road a long time now for Laois. He's some servant, but I would expect Kildare to beat Laois maybe by 4 or 5 points. I think that Kildare have applied themselves for the Tailteann Cup, and maybe I was one of the people that were worried that they wouldn't. They have seemed to have kept everyone on board. Glenn Ryan there was saying recently they're treating the Tailteann Cup like they're all Ireland. So I don't know. Maybe if they win the Tailteann Cup, it'll probably save him and the management team the job for next year. But yeah, like I suppose Kildare and Down, like they should be in the final. Like providing they don't meet in the semi-finals, if they stay apart from each other, they're the two best squads. And I think anything other than a win for either of them is a bit of a disaster. Because it does give them a pass into the SAM next year. They don't have to worry as much about the league. So
I'm going to bring up what's on. Oh, it's the retro view, right? I loved this when I saw it a little bit earlier. They've done it like the old teletext. That's unbelievable the way they've worked out the group stages in the Tailteann Cup. Anyway, that's not too relevant for what's happening in the quarterfinals this weekend. But that looks slick. Were you too young for that? You were probably too young for that.
I was a bit young. I remember it though. Like I remember when an Irish player scored, he used to come up in green.
Right, yeah. Geez, that wasn't today or yesterday. That was up. But like Fermanagh, we have a comment in there about how good Fermanagh are. And do you think could you see them going all the way in this competition? They've Antrim this weekend.
Yeah, I actually think of all the quarterfinals, that's probably going to be the tightest one, and not because I don't fancy Fermanagh. It's just because Antrim are probably the best of the teams challenging to get in. Like Kieran Donnelly's done a good job there. I know the school in Fermanagh won a Hogan Cup, and they've brought through a lot of younger players. Look, it is difficult, I suppose, in a county like that, like all the counties outside the top kind of 16, is you're always, challenging just turnover of players. But he has seemed to got it together. Antrim had a good win last weekend, playing London. London had put up some good performances. So, like, I don't know. I suppose Fermanagh have home advantage there with topping their group. So I'd probably fancy them to just shade it. Along, like, to be honest, like the 4 winners this weekend should be the 4 teams that the 4 number 1 seeds, isn't it? Like Down, Kildare, Sligo, and Fermanagh. They were the 4 teams kind of fancied, and like that's the thing about the Tailteann Cup, is just like it's like 16 teams and everyone has a chance. But like if you're being honest about it, like the bottom kind of 4 or 5 teams are not going to win the Tailteann Cup. You know, and like, to be honest, like if you do get knocked out of your Telstra Cup group stage, and I know Offaly did, like what are you at? Like, you know, like it's almost harder. It's harder to get knocked out than it is to go through. Like,
you just wonder, like, for some of the managers, they're probably pulling their hair out because there's got to be a certain amount of players who down tools or they're planning their trip to America for the summer. You know, I saw a big article there during the week about, you know, Conor Cooney would probably be the biggest name heading out to the States, but like, there's got to be a lot of players thinking, I'm heading to San Fran here, I'm heading to Chicago, New York.
Yeah, that's the problem with it. Like, and I don't know what players want. Like, you know, because you are getting a chance to play in Croke Park twice, game on TV. Like, compared to Joe McDonagh, like Joe McDonagh only gets the final on TV, isn't it? There's no other.
Yeah. That's the only one that was shown on TV. I think. Yeah. Come here. Did you ever go out and play in America?
No, I didn't. I actually didn't. I probably should have this year because the club championships was a bit of a joke. But yeah, no, it's hard. It's hard. Leave home because you're always thinking, like, you know, you don't. It's the last place you want to be if your club wins a county title is out in America. But yeah, I don't know. Probably at some stage, if there's anyone looking here,
a big come and get me plea from Langan Johnson.
Yeah, link the email there.
Yeah, I only ever went out once, and I was in my latter stages of my 20s at that stage. It is hard to beat it. Like, I know, you know, it can be tough for the club or whatever if a player misses matches, but it's unreal.
Whereabouts were you?
New York.
New York.
I was playing for Tip New York. Got to the final, lost it to Offaly New York. I think they'd won a 5 in a row. Hey, there was something I wanted to bring up, and that was something else further afield, and it's this talk of reviving the International Rules Series. Now, Sean McGoldrick was doing a piece about how the Herald Sun journalist Glenn McFarlane, he was talking during the week on a midweek tackle program, and he was saying the AFL is open to reviving the International Rules Series. There have been issues with the GA. There's not been a lot of discussion and conversation. Now, it's still a fair way off, but the AFL is definitely opening to having a chat to with the GA and potentially setting up a new series time down the track. I hope it's binned forevermore. I don't ever want to see it back again. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I wouldn't really have much of I don't know, like, why do you think that, or what's the...
Well, number one, I think the sport is only okay, and its teams are just thrown together, and you've got professionals against amateurs, so there's always going to be that athletic deficit there. But I would say the main thing is it's not good enough to be interrupting people's club championships. There's players having to make a decision between, will I tog for the International Rules Series on Saturday and then also play a Leinster club game on Sunday? I just think, you know, it even interrupts teams' training plans and club championships and stuff like that. I just don't think the juice is worth the squeeze.
Yeah, like I wouldn't really have much.
And then they poach our players at the back of it because they've done well in the International Rules games.
Yeah, too. Yeah, I wouldn't really have much of a memory of it. I remember going up with the club on a bus to Croke Park one time and watching it a couple of times on TV. But I don't know, like, is it even like what? Like, they use a round ball and they use Aussie rules. Like,
they
so
do like a compromise of the two sets of rules. And there's goals and points, but there's, like, you know, the way they rugby tackle you onto the ground and pin you down, and then it's a turnover ball or whatever. If you continue to hold on to the ball, like, they do that sort of stuff, and I'm just like,
yeah. But what was the last year it was on? Was it?
Oh, was it around 2017, 2018? I can't remember. I was down at the Aussie Rules Series in 2014, and I got into it a bit because every day you're going down watching the training, or you're going down interviewing the players and all that kind of stuff. I did get into it a bit, and one of the games was pretty tight, if I remember correctly. But no, I just wanted to go on.
And like, I think it was one of the last years that was on, like, all the Dublin players, and wasn't the Gooch one time just pulled out because he was getting thrown around the place by the Aussie lads. But yeah, like, you can pick up an injury there hard easy. But I suppose players will say, like, Jesus, it's a chance to represent my country like that I'll never get. So,
but in a making up the sport. But Stockroom Tim says the Aussies can't kick a ball around, so they think they'll go around and wallop the Irish lads. Joke for competition. What do you think about some of these rules coming in? So Jim Gavin, his football review committee, the likes of, I see James Horan, he's involved as well, and he did a column about it, and he was talking about how, you know, he'd have people coming up to him saying, you know, don't tinker too much. But, like, he's also of the view that, well, if we're going to fix this game in terms of, like, making it really entertaining, we've got to be quite radical. So of the rules that you've kind of heard of, 4 points for a goal, shots outside, you know, this scoring arc outside 40 meters, shot clock, vanishing foam, what are you thinking?
Yeah, there's loads of stuff in it. And I think first they kind of have to be commended because at least they're thinking outside the box and they're thinking of how can we improve the game. I know traditionalists are probably afraid of change and they're like, this is nonsense. But I suppose you have to kind of try and find a happy medium that, like, I think is it their kind of mission statement is to want to make it the best sport in the world to play and watch or something. So at the moment, I love Gaelic football, but I completely understand people that are passing fans that tell me they can't watch football. Like, I completely get it. So I suppose
even worse than that, like sometimes when you talk, it's almost like, and you love the game, but it sounds like it's even misery to play.
Yeah, well, like to be honest, like I'd be an inside forward, like, and sometimes it is not enjoyable. Like, you're standing in there and you're looking out at 10 bodies in front of you, and you're like, Jesus, like this is. It's just not really what you grow up playing, like, because you grow up like kicking the ball, kicking scores, like that's why you get out of bed in the morning to play, like.
And Keane, can I tell you, like the last time I played a competitive football game, so it was with Coola's third team. I had just come back from the Euros in 2016, and I'd had a heavy few days of it, but they were caught for numbers, so I said, yeah, I'll go out and play because I've always loved playing football, but it was so different from the most recent time I played, which could have been 15 years beforehand. And I'm talking about a competitive game, so to speak. And I played the game, and I was one of very few players who was actually just trying to kick the ball all the time. Now, good or bad, I just realized everyone's just hand passing around all the time, and it is blanket attack. And I started off centre forward, went in full forward, and I was just like, there's a goalie to my right, there's a full back to my left, there's a sweeper. There was actually nowhere to go, and I was like, this is so different to what I used to play. And obviously you wouldn't even know of the game that I played when I was a kid. Like it's just unrelated.
Yeah. And like, to be honest with you, like it's absolutely wild the amount of players at club level and county level who actually can't kick the ball 30 meters, like a basic kick pass, whatever about kicking a point. Like
it's not even in their instincts.
I genuinely don't understand how a player can, like, most people start playing Gaelic when they're 6 or 7. Like, how can you play a sport for almost 20 years and you can't do, like, it's called football. Like, I genuinely don't understand that. It's probably not much of an issue in hurling with striking, is it? I wouldn't say so, no.
No, you can't, if you can't strike the ball. Obviously, there's lads who just hand pass mostly, but the vast majority of players play because they love striking the ball so much. Like, I'd be training lads, and I'm almost saying, lads, the reason we play, it's actually a cathartic feel to just strike a ball over and back. Like, you can be in a bad form, go puck a ball for 10 minutes and you're feeling grand. And I'm saying, lads, I know, like, sometimes we have to quell the instinct to strike a ball, especially if you're in traffic. You need to hand pass. It seems like pack the middle. So if you're going through the traffic, trying to stick past in there, you're asking for a turnover. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. Like, because you shouldn't be able to be. You shouldn't be put on the field if you can't execute the basic skill that you're meant to. Like the 40-meter arc, I think, is a good idea because it rewards kind of long kicking and it incentivizes teams to practice it. And
so it's 2 points for outside that arc 40 minutes. But James Horan had a good point on this. He was like, does that also mean that you give 2 points for a free that's hit outside the 40? Because if you don't, then I'm going to foul you. If you're 43 yards out or whatever and you're winding up, I'm going to foul you. So then we know the most that can be scored for that 2-pointed effort is a 1 point free.
Yeah, that's the thing, I suppose, about these trial matches. Like, there's always going to be unintended consequences. Like, and like, as a player or a coach, you're going to look for any loophole you can. What gives us the best chance of winning this game? Like, I suppose bringing in 4 points for a goal and 2 points for the outside the 40-meter kind of complement each other. Because if you left a goal at 3 points, like, there's not much incentive to go for a goal. Whereas it's 4, there maybe is. And then if a team says, right, we're not conceding a 4-pointer here, everyone come back, at least you can punish them by kicking 2 from the outside. Like, I suppose these trial matches will they tell a lot? They'll probably just, see how it works. But, like, it's a load of random players who have been knocked out of the championship coming together just to have a bit of crack, really. Like, you're not coached to find loopholes in the rules. I suppose the thing about the what they're doing is, I think they want to trial them quickly rather than wait for a pre-season competition or the colleges next year, because they're looking at bringing them in for 2025. And I think Jim Gavin had actually said when he was Dublin manager, there was rule changes put in for the league, and he said to his players, like, we are forgetting about all this. This is not in for the championship, so let's completely ignore it. So that's the thing. Like, if it's coming in next year, it's going to be for league and championship. But I don't know. Have you any thoughts on that.
Well, I do, just to go back to the 4 points for a goal, 2 points for a point that's taken outside the 40-metre line. Just wonder, are we moving more and more towards the scoring system of AFL, which I've spent a bit of time sort of half attacking there. But are we after a while going to say, well, we need those extra 2 posts for a wide, which is counted as 1 point? So, like, for people who don't know, there's like 4 posts. Inside the 2 is obviously a goal, and outside that it's called an over or behind or whatever the hell it's called. So I just don't know, like, are we getting so far away from Gaelic football? But then again, as things stand, and you're talking about it being not that enjoyable to play and people are turning their backs on it in terms of viewing it, like, do we have to just totally change what Gaelic football used to be to get it back to the stated aim, which is like the most entertaining amateur field sport in the world?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, so many people are going to be against that. Like, people are afraid of change. I see their 13-a-side. Like, that's actually a really good idea as well. I'd be all for that. Now, I know that you might say that that's going to promote more athletes because you're going to have to get up and down the pitch quicker, but it's very hard to mark 2 inside forwards when there's that much space. So I think the games in America are actually 13-a-side. That's why you always see high scoring. But yeah, like, I suppose the long kicking, like I remember, I'm probably only watching football maybe 10 years that I'm actually kind of understanding what's going on. But whenever have not much to be at, I throw on an old game, like, and I remember, like, even that Cork 2010 team of, like, Donegal O'Connor and Daniel Goulding, Kieran McConnell. Yeah, I suppose Dermot Connolly was kind of around that time as well. Like, the points that they were throwing over, and what really, like, kind of struck me is that the commentators would hardly acknowledge a point, like, being absolutely slung over. And if it's now, like, the commentators, like, Darren Maloney's going to fall out of the box someday that, like, someone puts over a point, like, because it's so rare, like, you don't see it so often. So I think, yeah, we should probably have a look at it. I don't know where it's all going to end up. People are probably going to have to take time to adapt to it. But I think the mark advantage one is actually good as well. That it's 45, a kick from outside the 45 has to go to the 21. But once you catch the ball, you have a mark regardless of what happens. So basically, you can then have a free shot at taking on your man and go for a goal. And if you get held up, you come back for the free. I know that's really hard on defenders, but I don't really
like
care.
it one bit. Like, tell you why I don't like it, Keane.
Yeah.
I was posting on X this week about how much I hate the advantage rule in GA at the moment. Like, let's say I have the ball 45 yards out, and I'll sort of half run to engage the contact, go straight at you, throw my arms up in the air straight away, and then the referee will put the arm up for the advantage, and I'll take a pop, as they say in rugby. You've got a free hit here or a free shot to go. And then because you're coming back. And I think that, like, let's say I go in and I induce contact with you, the ref puts the arm up in the air. If you sort of straight away back off, which you see players do all the time, as soon as the hand goes up, they back off. If you get back on the front foot again now and you've possession and you're clear of my tackle, that should be okay. Well, the advantage has been given now. You're clear, free over. That's my thing, because there's too much of this thing whereby, and especially in hurling, it's even worse because it's so much easier to score from so much further out. I hate that, and I think that advantage rule needs to be changed to what I'm saying, that as soon as you get back on the front foot and clear the tackle, the advantage is now over and the game continues.
Yeah, but some referees ref that differently. Anyway, I see at club level. Like what is the rule there? So if you're tackling me and you foul me and there's an advantage and I shoot and it goes wide, like, is that not my advantage? Like, was the shot not my advantage?
I think it's like a 5-second rule.
Yeah. Because sometimes you see the ref and he'll leave it go and it's like, well, you had your shot, and then the other refs is like, well, no, you missed, so you get a free instead. But no, I do like that because it eliminates like, if you look at the Galway Kerry final 2 years ago, like, Clifford scored 3 marks that day, and look, you can't blame him for taking an easy point. But, like, if you're a fan and you're sitting there and Clifford catches the ball, you're like on the edge of your seat. Here we go. You want to see him go at the man, see what's going to happen next. One-on-one duel, but it's just a handy point, and he puts it over. And the other thing is, like, the kick pass has to go inside the 21. So if you think about it, like, barring like a skyscraper where someone fetches it, like, it's going to take a really talented player to fizz a kick pass that distance into someone, like, head height or into someone's chest. So I suppose it's another kind of incentivized kicking. But yeah, I do take your point on the advantage, and it's probably really hard on defenders, but I'd like to see it given a go. Anyway.
Yeah, do you know, just for people who want total clarity on the advantage rule here, I've just gone onto the GA's portal on learning.ga.ie, and it's like football and hurling. When the referee has adjudicated that a foul has been committed, either technical or aggressive, he may allow play to continue if he considers it to be the advantage of the offended team. He may allow this advantage to run for up to 5 seconds after the foul, or less time if it is clear that no advantage has accrued. Whether or not the free kick puck is awarded, the referee shall apply any other relevant disciplinary action. So again, I just think it should be a case of, right, we'll play advantage. Does he get back to an advantageous position whereby he has the ball and is unimpeded? You know the way sometimes you see a lad gets slowed up and then he gets swallowed by players on the opposition team. Obviously, in that situation, you will then give the free. But if I get past you then after you initially impede me, advantage over, and we'll just play away.
Yeah.
But then there's like this grey area, right, where, and I had it last year where, pretty sure I played in a match with Kula's junior team, and I was fouled, and obviously, you know, the legs aren't what they used to be, so I'm looking to stop up straight away and like give me the free, and the referee then said to me, I'm going to blow you for over carrying the ball if you stop like that again. And then I was managing a team a few weeks later, and the referee said to the players, look, just stop up. If you want the free, just stop up. So there isn't actually clarity either. And like, I'm not blaming the referees as such, but maybe that's up to the GA to make sure that the referees have the clarity.
Yeah, I understand that. That actually happened to me as well. Like, I was getting fouled and I was coming in on my right foot, which would be my weaker foot. So I literally dropped the ball because I seen the ref had the hand up, and he was kind of saying, don't do that. Like, if I'll give you your advantage. But I was afraid of missing the shot and not getting the advantage. So it's a hard one. We need to get a referee onto this.
Free after it though.
Yeah, we got the free after. Yeah.
But did you pop it over?
Oh no, I'm left foot, so I give it the right foot taker. But we need to get a referee onto this, and yourself and Bernie can grill him on the advantage rule.
Yeah, I think we actually do have a referee, a pretty high-profile referee coming on Monday. So look, we'll wait and see.
Be tuning into that.
Yeah. Is there any other rule, like in terms of the back passes to the goalie? There's talk that if you don't give it to him in his own penalty box, otherwise you can't give it to him unless he's outside, I think, the 65, which is a rule I really like.
Yeah, because it eliminates the back to the goalkeeper and having a game of donkey for 5 minutes. But then it doesn't take away from what the likes of Niall Morgan and Ethan Rafferty have been doing the last few years. And then like the kick out kind of back to the small square where it was kind of previously, I suppose it lets the keeper get it out quicker. I don't know, like some goalkeepers, like you have to get the ball and run out to the 21 and then put it down to kick it. You know, it does take a while. Then I suppose it does incentivize the team to press up maybe, and you know, I suppose look, it's hard to know.
Here, I'll ask you one, Keane, right? What if all kickouts had to be taken by the keeper from the hand? I think it's easier to be more accurate off the ground than it is off the floor. And maybe that's, I mean, ladies football, you'd see it. But what would you think of that every kickout has to be taken out of hand?
Yeah, it would probably be easier to press a goalie maybe because he'd be humming and hawing about giving it to a lad short. Like we often do that in training where if you're playing a smaller game that we'll start to kick out from the hand because it's quicker and it's probably easier to press up. So maybe, it's something that could be looked at. Yeah. Did you send in a report to Jim Gavin? No.
I think I sent in a rules thing a good while back. Yeah, I think I did, and I'm tempted to go again about that advantage rule because it's been rotting my backside so much.
Yeah, I sent in one as well. But like loads of people are giving out about whatever, and if they don't, the Oaks opener, I think it was 35,000. I think Jim Gavin was carrying them around in a folder there, so you know, might get your rule brought up at some stage. But what about the 1v1 throw-ups? So it's instead of 2v2, because I think they analysed nearly every throw-in in championship games going back to, I think, the 80s and 90s, and they were saying that there's nearly always like pulling and dragging, and there's a free, and it's just a kind of a scrappy start to the game. So
yeah, no, I agree with that rule because how often, anytime Aidan O'Shea goes in for a 50-50 throw-up, he pretty much wins the ball. But these days, you see somebody going up, and it's basically like the two lads at the front are holding each other, and the two lads at the back are, you know, half holding each other, but going for the ball. No, I think it would make sense. Like even in hurling, right? You look at a clash ball in hurling, or what it used to be referred to as a clash ball. You basically have one lad might pull on it, The other lad might try and just get his leg across so he can flick it up to himself. And he's looking to see, can he get a free because he hasn't even tried to clash. And then you have 20 other lads trying to come in straight away anyway. It's an absolute mess. Whereas I actually like what they do in AFL, not to reference it too much, but like, you know, the way like the referee or a sideline official or whatever, he'll just turn his back to the play and just horse it up in the air.
Yeah. I think 1v1 would be good, like, cause like just to start off the game, you know, imagine like Fenton going up against Glass, or you know who's going to win, rather than two of them kind of getting wrestled and blocked, and then like it's hard even to see who's doing the holding half the time, and then it's free. So yeah, no, I think that one could work. I think that's pretty much it that they're trying, but yeah, I think they've actually brought in minor players as well to see what it looks like at underage level, and you know, I suppose, look, you have to credit them, but yeah, no, we're stuck with these rules for this year anyway. So we'll see how it turns out.
Have we it all covered for the moment? We've everything kind of covered for the week, have we?
I think so, yeah. I want to give you a quick Euros prediction, Shane, if that's all right.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've for 2021, I backed Italy. They were almost 9-1. I was trying to convince a lot of my friends, and they were all saying I was mad, and they won it. And then I had Argentina at the World Cup, so I've built up a fair bandwagon of eyes that are coming over to watch this tournament. So I'm going to back Germany. I think they'll get it done on home turf.
Okay, all right, fair enough now. But before the last World Cup, I went on RT Radio and predicted Germany to win it, or sorry, Argentina to win it. The following day, they lost to Saudi Arabia, so I was feeling like some 8-10, but they turned around and won it. Where did you back them now? Did you say it publicly now, or are you saying, I was saying to the mother there?
No, I did. No. I put together a thread there, and I have 30 or 40 of my friends on a kind of a private story there where I throw all up why I think they're going to win. So I'm preparing another one for tonight. But yeah, I think Germany, I just think they've a good kind of mix of older, experienced players and kind of youngsters that done well with Leverkusen this year. And yeah, no, look, it is a bit of a lottery. There's always a couple of penalty shootouts, but yeah, I'm putting my neck on the line for Germany.
Me and three other lads last night, we did a fantasy Euro draft. So it was a case of like, let's say there was four of us here, and I got, drew the lots to go first. I'd have first, then the next person would have second, the third person have the third, the fourth person had fourth and fifth pick, and then I ended up with the eighth pick, then eighth and ninth, and it just goes over and back like that. So I didn't get the first pick, which meant I didn't get Mbappe. So you end up straight away. So I've got Kane on my team at least.
Yeah.
Is he going to deliver or not? I think France will win it though. I mean, it's a pretty obvious pick, but I think France will win it. It'd be nice to see England lose a final, wouldn't it? Bit of crack there.
Yeah, no, I think England. I don't think England are going to do anything. I think their injuries, and even like, I know there's a lot of talk about Bellingham and Foden and all that, but they never play well for England because like they're not kind of set up to play well. I think Foden's only scored 3 goals for England, and Bellingham's only 2 or something. And like it's just I wouldn't go for England at all now. I'm actually Portugal. The draw is opening up for Portugal on the other side. I think they don't play a group winner until semi-final stage. So I think I might have something small on Portugal and then cash out maybe coming towards the semi-final.
Yeah, actually, one of the 4 lads who's in that group, one of my friends, he is Portuguese, so he's quietly kind of pushing down the knife bit. By the way, we're commenting there from Catherine Coughlin saying, not like Shade, forget to wish the Tip Miners luck on Saturday. Yeah, they're up against Galway. That's at the Gaelic grounds, 2:00. And then on Sunday, Kilkenny against Clare are on at 1:00 in Semple Stadium. So there's plenty going on in the GA this weekend. Cian, we've it all said. Thanks very much for joining us, and I'm sure we'll chat again very soon.
Cheers, Shane. Good luck.